Man muss die Russen einfach, ich sage das mal so plump, anständig behandeln. Aber wir können uns unser Verhältnis nicht von Washington aus diktieren lassen, das geht nicht.
RT's Laura Smith has more on how the mood between Moscow and Brussels might soon change.
Well, it certainly looks like part of a general thawing. Last week we saw the meeting of the Normandy 4 in Paris, which ended on a positive note, discussions about Ukraine there. And now Juncker talks of this almost conscious uncoupling from Washington. How will it develop? Well, there's certainly a feeling that there was pressure on the European Union to place sanctions on Russia over Ukraine. And in fact, even the US itself admits it. Let's hear that.
It is true. They did not want to do that. But again, it was America's leadership and the President of the United States insisting, oftentimes almost having to embarrass Europe to stand up and take economic hits to impose costs.
Well, we now know that those sanctions have proven to be bad for both parties, bad for the Russian economy, obviously, but also for individual EU member states, which have both lost trade as a result of the sanctions and as a result of Russia's counter-sanctions. So this really marks a turning point in attitude, at least.
Deshalb muss man sich ein korrekteres Verhältnis zu Russland bemühen. Das ist nicht sehr sexy, aber das muss sein. Wir können so nicht weitermachen.
So it's necessary, says Juncker. Now, these sanctions on Russia are up for renewal towards the end of the year. The question is, could this rapprochement mean a rethink?
Руководство в цене амбиций создать по-настоящему широкую международную антитеррористическую коалицию, как и антигитлеровская коалиция.
Well, Russia had previously unveiled plans to unite forces fighting Islamic State from the air and on the ground. It also insisted on including the Syrian government troops in the battle against the terrorists as one of the most potent anti-ISIL forces.
This doesn't mean that in the end you need to have a solution for Syria, which means that you will have an inclusive type of government and try to rebuild this nation. It's going to take a very, very long time.
We have to acknowledge this is a total failure.
Let's not kid ourselves, that's a joke.
Our coalition is on the offensive. ISIL is on the defensive, and ISIL is going to lose.
Paris authorities are saying to people, please stay at home, and also to exercise greater vigilance in terms of entrances to buildings. They're asking for people to really try to help them in securing these areas. Little look at the Stade de France, which we haven't had all of that much information from, largely because when there's a big event at the Stade de France, you've got more than 80,000 people, and the mobile phone coverage basically just doesn't work.
Mes chers compatriotes,
my dear fellow citizens, as I speak, terrorist attacks of an unprecedented scale are taking place in the Paris area. Several dozens have been killed. Many have been wounded. It's a horror. Upon my orders, we have mobilized all possible forces so that we can neutralize the terrorists and secure all areas that could be affected. I also asked for reinforcements from the military, who have already been deployed in the Paris area, so that no further attack can take place. I also called an emergency cabinet meeting, which will take place shortly. 2 decisions will be taken. A state of emergency will be declared, which means that some places will be closed, traffic will be stopped, and police searches may be conducted throughout the Île-de-France region. This state of emergency will be effective throughout the French territory. The second decision I have taken is the closure of French borders. We must ensure that no one can enter our country to commit acts of terrorism in whatever form. And at the same time, this means that whoever could have committed these crimes can be found and arrested if they try to leave the country. This is a terrible event that has once again come upon us. We know where the threat is coming from. We know who the criminals are. We know who the terrorists are. In these extremely difficult moments, we need to spare a thought for the numerous victims, for their families, and for those who've been wounded. We need to show compassion and solidarity, but we also need to show unity and keep calm. In the face of terror, France must stay strong and stand tall, and the state authorities must be very firm, and they will be. We must also call on everyone to be responsible. What the terrorists want is for us to be scared. They want to put fear into us. There is indeed reason to be afraid. It's chilling, but in the face of this fear, our nation knows how to defend itself, and it will, once again, defeat the terrorists. French citizens, we have not finished the operations. Very difficult times lie ahead. Even as I speak, our security forces are carrying out a raid inside Paris. I ask all of you to keep your faith in what our security forces can do to save our nation from acts of terrorism. Long live the Republic, long live France.
Vive la République et vive la France.
It's just the beginning, as you see economically disenfranchised people in the rest of Africa and the Mideast seeing people being able to make it into Europe. The flood is going to grow.
It puts Angela Merkel of Germany in a very difficult position, does it not, John? Because Germany has been the one who said we need to welcome the refugees. They actually have set up settlements and developments. It puts her in a very difficult situation, does it not, if she gets pushback from her cabinet, from her government, about continuing that more welcoming stance, if you will?
Yeah, Europe and Germany, there's a small silver lining here that has been argued that they need this immigration to offset the fact that economically, demographically, Europe is aging. And for economic vitality, they need this immigration. But the political parties are saying the cultural differences are so severe, they need to put a stop to it.
Europe is in the midst of what they're calling the migrant crisis, with thousands and thousands and thousands of people escaping through the islands of Greece, trying to go through Turkey, trying to get to Germany and to Western Europe, because the situation in Syria, in Eritrea, is so horrific and difficult. And there's been already, before tonight, debate about what exactly to do. How welcoming should Western Europe be? Angela Merkel has been particularly aggressive about saying we should be welcoming to these people. Regardless, we don't know. You can assume that the European population is very likely thinking that's the case and wondering how many more people do we take in when we invite people who are in a humanitarian need. Are we also inviting in elements that could be our self-destruction? It's going to be a very difficult discussion. It's already been ripping Europe apart. It threatens Angela Merkel in ways that she hasn't been threatened throughout the European financial crisis.
The game continued for safety reasons, we suspect, but then the people were moved very quickly from the area. Concerned parents with their children and families, the evacuation underway. French president already having got back to the Elysee Palace to start the emergency cabinet meeting, the Interior Ministry cabinet, which met overnight then to coordinate its response. As that was happening, more details came through of the killings elsewhere. But Scott McDougall was one of those at that football match and heard that bomb go off. This is what he told us a little earlier last night.
Assad needs to go.
Assad has to go.
Assad cannot be a credible partner for us.
It is time for him to go.
he definitely has to be part of the negotiations.
Political resolution can only come about through negotiation.
We have to acknowledge this is a total failure.
Let's not kid ourselves, that's a joke.
Our coalition is on the offensive. ISIL is on the defensive, and ISIL is going to lose.
They only managed to find a handful of these so-called moderates to go into Syria.
Can you tell us what the total number of trained fighters remains?
It's a small number, and the ones that are in the fight is we're talking four or five. So.
How are you going to do it? Because I don't think it's been at all successful yet.